I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, Ralph Tyko, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, the East Bay, as a matter of fact, in Northern California. And I'm a lucky guy today. I've got an old bud. Way back, 25 years ago, I was the Tops rep on the West Coast, the Northwest League, the California League. I would sign players to their Tops baseball card contracts. And 28 years ago, something like that, I'm in Stockton, California, and the Milwaukee Brewers. Am I correct, Dave Machemer?
That's it, Ralph.
All right, you were the manager.
Yes, sir.
And
it's coming back to me.
All right, you remember the interaction we had?
Oh yeah.
I got to talk to Dave. I was waiting for one or two players who hadn't signed their contracts. It was the High A League in Stockton, so there were a few guys to sign. One of them was a future major leaguer named Gary Sheffield.
That's
and
right.
I got there real early, and I'm talking to David, and he tells me that on his first at bat in the major leagues with the California Angels, he hits a home run. And Dave, you were on major league rosters for 2 or 3 years. You never got a Tops contract, a Tops card.
You're right, Ralph. That was really a bugaboo for me because I wanted to be on a card so bad, and what had happened was when I got called up to the big leagues, in fact, it was the anniversary of 39 years ago, June 21st, just a couple of days ago when I hit my home run. So it was, I had a lot of accolades from Facebook on that because I had put something on there, and so many friends and family wished me, congratulations on that, and it really touched me. But, thinking back to it, when the Angels called me up, I wasn't on a major league roster. I was purchased, and back in the day, if you remember, Ralph, they did not do a Tops traded set those years. So at the end of the year, like they do now, they always update the guys that came up during the year. But back then, they didn't do it. So I didn't get printed on a card in '78. And then over the winter, the Angels took me off the roster, and the Tigers actually Rule 5'd me to the major leagues, and I made the club in spring training. And I thought, well, gee, I'm going to be on a card. And I think I talked to Cy Berger maybe or someone, and I go,
right, Cy Berger was my boss.
That's right, Cy Berger. And I said, Cy, I'm finally going to make it to the on a Tops baseball card. And he goes, well, Dave, I got bad news for you. I go, what's that, Cy? And he goes, the day we took the list, during the winter, you had been taken off a roster, and then you were put on a roster a week later. Well, during that week, that's when we took the list. So, unfortunately, that particular week, I was not on the list. So, once again, I did not get put on a card for a Tops Major League card, and just really, really killed me. I really wanted to be on that card.
We'll cut. It's 5-6 years later. You went into your career is over. You go into coaching and managing in the minor leagues.
Yes.
And this is stuck with you. And here I come in. I'm this guy from Tops. And
and I remember that.
And we talk, and you were just the feeling in your voice. You love baseball cards. You love the idea of being on one. You never got on one. So we're talking with great respect for baseball cards, and you have tremendous respect for the game and the tradition. And in comes to the clubhouse the number one prospect of the Milwaukee Brewers.
That's right.
And his name is Gary Sheffield. And you say,
of course, Gary,
I'd like you to meet Ralph Tyko. He's the Tops guy. And he's here to offer you a contract that everybody signs. Basically, we pay you $5 now. If and when you make the big leagues, we pay big.
Right.
He looks at both of us, says nothing whatsoever. This is the introduction to the guy. Says absolutely nothing, as if we were both in invisible.
Surprise, surprise.
No respect for, and he walks away. He doesn't say, no, kiss my ass.
Didn't say a word, did he, Ralph?
Didn't say a word. And he walks away. And I'm sitting there, we're two middle-aged guys. We're probably about the same age.
Yes.
And we're looking at each other.
Dumbfounded.
Dumbfounded. It was just like one of those moments, and that's been in my mind. I did the gig for 15 summers. I go, and I met hundreds of players, coaches, managers. I never had an interaction like that. Never had an interaction with another human being that was so rude to his superior, his manager, his acquaintance. You're not a superior at that point. It's just another human being. And it was one of the things. I have about 5 memories of being the tops guy. Again, hundreds of miles of driving, hundreds of teams, hundreds of players.
That's right.
That one stands out. I have told that story to people, and about this guy's, it just showed me his character. At that time, he was 20 years old. And
Gary was immature at the time a little bit. He was getting advice from people, and Gary, was a number 1 pick, and so he had in his mind the things that he had the right to, and what he didn't have to sign, and what he did have to sign. And I think that many of those
he didn't have to sign. All he had to do was say, "Oh, no, thanks." My agent
but he didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything, and I thought, well, that's just all part of it. And that must have been about 1985 or 86, and
87, Ralph, 87.
Oh, okay. It was early on in my doing it, and it was just something that stuck in my head, and I wanted to get an idea back then, and I always have, of try to learn as much as I can about the experience of coming up in the minors, both from a coaching standpoint, from a player when he's drafted, how he's drafted, this, that, and the other thing. And he was just a perfect example of someone, as you say, was immature at the time and didn't handle himself very well. Well, I like to think that people don't change over the years, and I followed Gary's career in the big leagues. He even played for the Mets, my team, at one
That's
time
right.
or another.
Played with a few clubs.
I found it difficult to root for him. He was a terrific hitter, but people established their loyalties along the way, good, bad, or the other thing. And I always wanted to ask you, how did you feel when he made it big? Did he go back to people that he came up with, such as yourself, and say, hey, I was 20, I was this, that, and the other thing? Did he have remorse about the way he was?
Ralph, if you read his book, it will tell you everything how he felt about me, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay.
But looking back on it, Ralph, I loved all my players. I rooted for each and every one of them. And the problem back in the day is when Gary came in, I was the chosen one to shadow Gary Sheffield. And all I ever tried to do was help Gary. Gary was a tremendous talent, and to this day, he's one of the greatest players that ever played the game. But as the manager and an instructor and coach over the years, when I had him, I was chosen to be the guy that was behind him in every step. And I think he resented that. And it wasn't anything against Gary, okay? I just always tried to make him better. But he took it in a different a mindset that, I was on him, I was hard on him, and I was hard on a lot of my players because I wanted to make them get everything, every drop of talent out of their blood. But he took it and he resented me for that fact, and there were some things that came up on some arguments and things, and and I have no animosity. Towards Gary or anyone that I've ever gotten in an argument with. But
Right.
there was things that came up, with him that we had our battles. We did, and he was a tough cookie to deal with at times, But tremendous talent, and when Gary walked into the room and on a given day, in a mood that he was in, he had the greatest smile in the world. I'll tell you, especially when he showed off his front two teeth that had Gary Sheffield GS engraved in gold in his front two teeth. But
that was.
You remember that? I don't know if you remember that or not.
I do remember.
On a given day, it was the other
Gary.
But it was the other Gary Sheffield that walked into the room the day you met him was the other one. So there was two things. There was, the up and down of Gary Sheffield. But, like I said, I have tremendous respect for all my players. I loved each and every one of them, and I'm not here today to badmouth anybody, Ralph, to be honest with you.
Well,
so,
I just wanted to recall
But read his book. There's a chapter in there about the
I will. I had no idea.
That'll tell you the story right there.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Hey, let's talk about you a little bit.
Okay.
I just found out after getting together with you after all these years, you are now scouting for the Orioles, and
yes,
which means that you're doing something that, in my mind, is incredibly interesting. You, in a career, you've been on both sides of scouting and player development.
Yes,
and I know that the two are separate entities, but they work hand in hand on any baseball club. And I would like, in your words, an idea of how being a scout makes one a better instructor, and how being an instructor makes one a better scout.
Well, I think being an instructor and a manager, you learn so much on watching the game from a daily basis from the dugout. And you get a feel for what it takes to go to the next level, whether it be from rookie ball to A ball to double A to triple A to the major leagues. And I was fortunate to manage at every level except the one I always dreamed of managing at, and that's the major league level, of course. But I saw kids come up from the rookie league through the triple A. So it really gave me a great perspective when I got into the scouting world on what I saw on an early player in their development and what it was for a late player in their development, say in AAA, and the process that it took them to go from A to B to C to D. And now scouting, I look back and I think, I'll watch a player. And in fact, the last 3 years before this year, I was doing a lot of amateur work as a special assignment scout, where I went out and saw high school and college kids, and it was very interesting to me because my boss, Gary Sheffield, who I love to death, one of the most outstanding men in baseball. This guy's a gem. He would tell me, Mac, he goes, when he hired me, I was new to scouting and I was kind of like treading water. And he goes, Mac, here's an easy way to look at it. When you look at a young player, from looking at him, what type of player that is, the way he carries himself and the field presence he has. You tell me whether you would want him to play for you as a manager. And that became simple for me then. When I watch a young man play or when I watch a professional player play, I like intensity. I like a guy who busts his ass. I like a guy who gets on the field and gets after it. And there are guys that go through the motions and, the old movie, they lollygag on. They lollygag off the field. I don't like that. I want a guy who gives me intensity from the first inning to the ninth inning. And as a scout and instructor going hand to hand, I've kind of come up with my own theory, and I watch a player, and I know skill set. I know if a guy's got a plus arm or a plus bat or a plus bat speed, he's an above average runner. Give me intensity, Ralph. Give me the love of the game. Give me your heart, and I'm gonna be on top of this kid, and I'm gonna push this kid. And I'm going to have his back. So that's the type of scout and the type of manager and the player I was.
Wow. No different than you were 28 years ago, Matt.
Thank you.
And
still got the passion,
you still got the fire burning. How does, as a scout, how are you handling the new age stats and the differences, the changes in scouting over the years?
Well, I'm old school. and I do incorporate a lot of those things. But in the end, I trust my eyes and I trust my brain, okay, and my heart. And I can look at all the stats in the world. And to me, I don't even a lot of times. In fact, Gary told me once, he goes, Mac, I don't want you to look at stats. I don't want you to look at video. I want you to look at them from a perspective as when you managed on the field and give me your best honest opinion about that player. And I can do that. And sometimes I'll look at a player and I'll evaluate them, and then I'll go back and I'll go, boy, these numbers, they don't match up with what I'm thinking, but I trust my instincts. I trust my instincts of 45 years in the game of baseball and the players that I have seen, like a Gary Sheffield, a Greg Vaughn, a B.J. Surhoff, a Jason Worth, a Brian Roberts, Pablo Sandoval, Buster Posey. All these players played for me. And from those players, I say, wow, okay, who does this guy remind me of in that mix? And I think that's helped me really evaluate at a pretty good clip to give them information that they want, not from a numbers perspective, but from a player perspective.
We talk Buster Posey. There's a Hall of Famer. He retires tomorrow.
He is.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has all those things that you talked about earlier.
Yes, he does.
The concentration. He's the man. What a thrill. I had no idea you managed in the Giants organization. 9
years, Ralph.
Wow, I definitely lost track.
Well, that's fine. We just hooked up.
I've had guys, Gary Davenport.
Gary's my hitting coach. Love him. Jim Davenport. What a man. What a peach. Rest in peace, Jim. You were a mentor to me. You were an individual that gave me so much after I'd been in the game a while. And he gave me information that a light bulb went on. I went, Jim. He used to call me and go, Mac, get your car started. We're going to go play some cards. And he loved to play cards at the casino. Okay, just for $1, $2 here and there. But I was his chauffeur down there for about 6 or 7 years in Giant Camp, and I became so close to Jim and Gary, who I continue to be so close to this day. We talk all the time. And those two guys, they're baseball people. I love those guys. And you know them, and you know a lot of the Giant people. And I've, like I said, 9 years with that organization, and they're dear to my heart. Mr. Sabian, Bobby Evans, and all of them that I worked, Dick Tidrow, that I worked for over there. I'll never forget that they gave me an opportunity, and I have 2 World Series rings from it, and I'll cherish them forever.
Did your paths ever cross with Dick Tidrow, the late?
Yeah, he was my boss for 9 years.
Oh, okay. A tremendous guy. He helped me as a tops guy for an awful long time.
Ralph, we call him the ninja because if you're at a game and all of a sudden a week later he'll come in and start talking about the game, and I'll go, Dirt. We call him Dirt. Dick, you were at the game? He goes, I was there. I'm a wow. I didn't see you. Oh, no, I stayed behind the curtains. And what a scout, what a baseball guy.
Yes, he would be in the bowels of the stadium.
Oh, yes, he would. Yeah.
Just watch.
I learned that after a few years being with the Giants. So it was cool. I have great memories of the Giants. I really do. Super people.
Were your scouting abilities innate? Were you able, when you were a young player, to look at the players around you and judge them and judge yourself?
Well, you mean when I was managing?
No. Early on when you were playing.
Oh, when I was playing.
Coming up, did you say, could you put your own abilities into perspective, your own chances of making it? Could you judge the play? You came up with a lot of great guys in that.
That's such a great question because, I'll tell you, Ralph, that's a great question because, looking back on it now, I understand now, looking at myself as a player, what scouts saw, okay? And I never kind of came to fruition in my mind back then that was, it was beyond my comprehension at that point. as I started playing a little longer, I got a quick story. When I was playing in Salt Lake City, and for Jimmy, I think it was Jimmy Williams or Darren Johnson. I can't remember if it was 77 or 78. We had a young man come up, and he was 20 years old. He came up from A-ball, and we're all watching him. And when he came up, we all said, oh, boy, you know, it was me and Bobby Jones was there playing with me and some veteran guys, Butch Alberts, a lot of veteran players that have been around. Oh, let's see what this young kid can do. Well, he went on a 15-game hitting streak right from the get-go, and I don't know if you remember him or not. His name was Dickie Thon. What a player.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
a pure hitter. Hurt his eye. I think he had an eye up.
He got hit in the eye, got smoked in the face, and I'll tell you what, I knew right then that I didn't have what he had. I knew that. And I didn't have what Rance Mullenix had from shortstop. And a few of these guys that I played with, you know, they were smooth. They were fluid. They were, you know, I was a choppy, max effort, run through a brick wall, Pete Rose, blah, blah, blah. That's the type of player I was. I wasn't pretty, okay, like these other guys. So I started thinking about that. And now when I scout, I think back to those days, I think about that, and I go, well, this guy here kind of looks like me. You know, let's see what he can do. But I tell you, Don, thinking back to that, because the reason I'm telling you that story is I'm scouting the Texas League, and Dickie Don's son is playing for Springfield with the Cardinals. And actually, I was out to lunch or breakfast about 10 days ago, and I looked over and I said, "That's Dickie Don's son." And I walked over. I said, "You know, you don't know me. I don't mean to interrupt you guys." They were eating breakfast, and I said, "My name's Dave Machemer, and I'll tell you what, your dad was one of the greatest players I ever played with, and please tell him that I said hello, and I love him to death." And I really did. He was quite a player, and his son was quite a gentleman. So it's a full circle, Ralph. You run into so many people that, you know, now I'm meeting their children, so I know I'm getting old. So it's interesting.
You played in the bigs with two organizations. I don't know if you were still with Detroit when Les Moss was the manager.
Yes, I made the team out of spring training when Les was the manager in '79. Yes.
Another fellow I met way back, a baseball lifer, tremendous old guy, still hanging in there from what I understand.
Okay. Who Les is? Oh, you're talking about Les? Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Les.
I don't know. I kind of lost track of Les, but there wasn't a better baseball mind. I tell you, he knew it all, and he was such a catching instructor. And Lance Parrish, I'll tell you, Les Moss. Lance Parrish was a tremendous talent, but Les Moss put him over the top. I mean, he worked with Lance daily and made him quite a player. And of course, Lance had all the ability, the size, the strength, and the arm strength, and everything. But Les taught him the intricacies of receiving the ball, of calling a game, of setting up a hitter. And so, you know, I think Les was very instrumental in Lance's, and I think Lance will agree with that, actually.
One of your teammates, Dave, on that Detroit team, combined the two things that you were talking about, desire and talent, to the absolute desire and absolute talent, and that was Kirk Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell me something about him that we may not know? He's suffering. He's had some problems.
So sorry to hear about Kirk because, you know, Michigan State, I'm from Michigan, and, you know, he was a legend back there. And, you know, it was, you know, Ricky Leach and Gibson, we played together in Evansville, okay, a little bit.
Right.
And then in spring training and all in big league camp. And, you know, and Leach used to get that football out, and he's trying to throw pass patterns at Gibson. And there was a coach that came out, and I can't remember who it was, and he absolutely undressed both of them about that. Get that football off the field.
Well, you know,
it was funny.
I saw, just in going around to these different teams, that there were a lot of instructors that used the football.
No, they're doing that now.
A teaching method, throw over the top, this, that, and the other thing. That was unenlightened advice that you got. That
back in the day, they didn't want anything to do with it. You know, now they're throwing frisbees and footballs and everything else out there. So it's changed a lot. But getting back to Gibby, I still remember we were running some sprints in the outfield, and I could run. I mean, I stole probably 250, 280 bases in the minor leagues, and I was a base stealer. And so there was me and Ron LaFleur and Gibson in spring training, and everybody was, chattering about, boy, these three guys can really, really run. And one of the reporters came up to me, hey, we heard there's going to be a race tomorrow between you, Gibson, and LaFleur. I go, don't put me in those two guys' categories. I'm not running with those two, because those two guys were two of the fastest guys that I ever witnessed. They took one stride to my three. I mean, they could fly. Ronnie LaFleur could flat out fly, and so could Kirk. I mean, and Gibby was just a tremendous talent who had desire and fire, and I'm telling you, one of the fiercest competitors I ever played with. He really was.
Well, Downing, a guy you came up with.
Oh, Brian Downing?
Was he a pure hitter or what? This guy, I was an Angel apologist all those years back then, and he led off for them for a long time.
Wasn't that something? Here you got a catcher leading off, Ralph. I mean, Brian Downing was a tough guy. I mean, hey, talk about back in the day blocking the plate the way you can't do it now. Oh boy, that guy could block the plate. You didn't run through Brian Downing. I mean, that guy was a rock. And a quiet competitor, a guy in a clubhouse that you respected. A guy that walked around and you went, whoa. I mean, back in the day, now you see guys are cut, they got the muscles, but back in the day, I mean, he was in the weight room compared to back then. A lot of guys weren't doing the weights then. I mean, it was just a misnomer. I mean, don't do weights. It'll stiffen you up. You'll get tight. Well, Brian Downing didn't work for him, and what a great career he had.
He did. Did you get to? Were you still with Detroit when Sparky Anderson came in?
Actually, the day that Sparky Anderson was named manager, here's another short story. I always have them. When I was with the Angels in 1978, I got called up on June 13th, of that year, and Jim Fregosi took over as manager for Dave Garcia that day, June 13th. A year later, I was, I didn't know what was, I was in the minor leagues, and it was the 12th of June, and I thought, tomorrow is June 13th. I've been swinging the bat pretty good. I've been playing pretty well. Wouldn't it be weird if I got called up? I get called into Doc Edwards' office because actually I was playing for the Orioles. I got loaned out to the Orioles in Rochester, New York. And Wayne Krenchicki and I got called into the office on June 13th that day. And Doc Edwards called us in and had talked to us about actually showing up late at an affair we had to be at because Krenchicki wanted to play darts. He loved to play darts, and we went and played darts, and all of a sudden said, Matt, we're supposed to be at that event tonight. Oh, golly, let's get over there. So Doc calls us in the next day and starts reaming us about how we were late, be a professional, this and that. And the next thing you know, he tells us, but that's okay. I'm sending you, and he points at Krenchicki, to see Earl Weaver. He went up, and I'm sending you to see Sparky. I go, Sparky? He goes, yes, Sparky was named manager today from the Detroit Tigers, and you're going to the big leagues. A year later, June 13th, two managerial
Did you guys
changes.
just look at each other in the office?
We just looked at each other like we were.
You and Krenchicki, I mean.
No, me and Wayne, our jaws dropped. I mean, and Wayne will tell
me. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It was like crazy. I mean, come on.
You were no spring chicken getting called up. You were like 27, 28 years old when you were struggling.
Yep, that's right.
So it had to mean more to you than some kid just gets signed and boom, 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 he goes through the system and he's up. He spent years riding the buses and.
No, 7 years, Ralph. Before I got called up the year before, and Wayne was a couple years younger than me, and he got a lot more big league time than I did. But we remained close friends to this day, and we still are. We talk all the time. And I'll tell you about a competitor, Wayne Krenchicki, in Rochester, played second base with a cast on his ankle, with a broken leg. He played.
Oh.
To this day, I say, Chick, you talk about blood and guts. I saw you play with a cast on it was one of these casts where he had a broken ankle and he was playing. I mean, come on. That doesn't happen today. And they wouldn't let it happen today, see? So
I want to see Scalise playing second base for the Republicans next year. With that said, if Krenchecki can play with a cast, Scalise can play with a broken hip.
Oh,
come on,
gosh, well,
get out there.
Ralph, don't bring up politics to me, okay? I'm not going to talk.
I won't.
Yeah, I know.
Was he a politician? Oh.
No.
We won't.
Won't go there.
We won't go.
No.
We won't go there. Who was a great pitcher? You were only up 2 years in the big.
Yes.
Who was a pitcher that you owned that you might not have been expected to own? Great pitcher that you hit.
Well, I don't know if he's a great pitcher, but I own Mark Wiley. You remember him?
I do. I remember the name. Okay.
But I own him in the minor leagues, okay? But, all right, I have more career home runs off of Mark Wiley, and I wasn't a home run hitter, okay? And he saw me scouting a few years back, and he walked up to me and goes, "Are you Dave Machemer?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And I looked at him, and I said, "I kind of recognized him. I'm Mark Wiley, and you owned me." And I went, "Whoa, well, thank you," you know? But in the big leagues, I can actually say this, that my last major league hits came in Baltimore, and there was two guys with the same last name. I got 3 hits that night. I was 3 for 4 in Baltimore for the Tigers. 2 hits off Dennis Martinez, and 1 hit off Tippy Martinez, and that was my last 3 big league hits. So
that's not bad.
Pretty good name.
You own the Martinezes.
Yes, right. For one day.
Well.
At one day.
What pitcher that you faced that you said, "My God, this guy has incredible stuff"? You don't think about it when you're in the minors. You can't. Who surprised you as somebody that just
I got
either
one for
command?
I got one for that because this is just going to be a fairly quick story. I was managing in where was I? It was an A-ball somewhere. Let me think. Frederick, Maryland, I think it was. Anyway, no. 2002. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. 2003, Harrisburg. Some guy asked me, "Hey, Mac, who was the toughest pitcher you ever faced?" I go, "Well, you probably never heard of him. His name was Louis Aponte." Okay. He pitched with the Red Sox, and he was a journeyman.
Okay.
And he goes, "Really? I've never heard of him." I said, "Hey, man, the guy could just walk on the mound, and I couldn't see the ball. He'd strike me out every time. He had a split finger. He had a fastball I couldn't read." And he goes, "Oh, really? Well, I've never heard of the guy." I go, "Yeah, well, I never touched him. I don't think I got a hit off in my life." So the next day, I'm managing the club. It was a Sunday. That was a Saturday when he asked me. Sunday, and all of a sudden, a player comes in. He goes, "Mac, there's some guy out here who wants to talk to you." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He says he knows you and he wants to talk to you. Send him in. Walks in, it's a Latin fella, and he goes, "Are you Dave Machemer?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He goes, "I'm Louis Aponte." The next day. It's been the guy in 30 years. And I go, "Louis, well, how, gee," I said, "I can't believe it. I mentioned your name yesterday." "Oh, what about?" I said, "Well, never mind, but you owned me," like Wiley told me. So to make a long story short, Val, the next few games he's watching some players to take to Venezuela in winter ball because he was looking for some players. And the particular games that he watched, the final game that we played, we ended up winning a game on a walk-off squeeze play that I called, which I like to squeeze, okay? He came in after the game and he said, "My owner, Pablo Ruggieri, is with me." He goes, "Mac, we are looking for a manager. He loves the squeeze. You like the squeeze. Would you like to manage my club this winter?" I go, "Sure." He brought me over to Venezuela to manage. He brought me over to Caribes. It's a Venezuelan league, the Caribes, and I managed that club 3 different times in the Venezuelan Winter League. So it's the weird. I have the weirdest stories sometimes, and the things and the way it just lines up the stars that I end up going to winter ball 3 years in Venezuela. I also managed 3 years at Mexico and had some great players over there, but great times in winter ball, and Louis Aponte was the toughest guy that I ever faced. And he's not a big
What
one.
a coincidence. In one weekend,
that's strange.
Basically, it changed a lot of your life. I mean,
exactly, and it was one of the greatest experiences. Actually, that 2003 club in Caribes was one of the greatest teams I ever managed. Maglio Ordonez in right, Omar Infante at short, Randall Simon at first, Carlos Silva was one of my starters, Cayespo in left field. We went all the way to the finals, to the last game to win the whole thing, and we were picked to finish last that year. We had a great year. Well, Carlos Silva's on the mound in the 7th inning. We're winning 2-1. Man on second, 2 outs. I went out to Silva. Silva, maybe we ought to walk the next guy. No, I'm going to get him. I go, well, don't give him anything to hit. Well, the first pitch to the guy on deck was a hanging slider. He hit it 450 feet. I don't know if you've heard of him, Ralph. His name is Miguel Cabrera.
Oh.
Yeah. 2003, Miguel Cabrera goes deep. We lose the final game, and we're ousted out of the playoffs. But, anyway, another quick story. I got a lot of them.
How good are these Latin Winter League teams? Is it like 4A baseball? Is it equivalent? Could you take a Latin Winter League roster and put them in the big leagues in August? How would they do?
I'd say okay. When the Winter League start, when you first go over there, it starts October 20th or so. The season starts. They have a lot of the younger players playing. Well, as the season goes on and you get close to the playoffs, here comes Abreu. Here comes Miguel Cabrera. Here comes a Tomas Perez. Here comes a Henry Blanco. Here comes a Manny Trio. I'm going back a ways. But no, I'm telling you, the Latin teams that they assemble at the end of that doggone league in Venezuela and Dominican, I believe could, depending on the pitching, could go to the big leagues and compete. They're that good. They're that type of players. It's unbelievable. They're fabulous, and they love to compete over there. They have fun doing it. They play hard. It's their American baseball over there. It's like their World Series. I mean, their confidence in the way they compete over there at that level late in the year would be at a major league level. I really believe it.
Dave, did you get to scout the World Baseball Classic?
No, I didn't do that. No, I was in spring training this year, covering 5 major league clubs. So I watched it on TV. It was fun. I really enjoyed that.
Okay. Do you think having a tournament in spring training like that is good for ball or bad for ball?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I don't want to see injuries. I think sometimes the pitching guys are trying to compete at a level beyond their physical preparedness because they're maybe not in shape to go out there and throw 98, 97, and they're going to try to do it, and I hope they don't hurt themselves. So that early in the season, sometimes I wonder because of the injuries. I think it's great for baseball. I just am afraid of the injuries that are going to occur, and it's going to hurt them in the long run for the major league spot. That's what bothers me. The other thing,
okay,
the way the people love it, gosh, the crowds they were getting, and I know everybody loved it. I mean, all the guys that played it. I talked to Tom Gamboa, who was on the Israeli, one of the coaches there. What a great guy. We go way back, and he just had a blast.
And what a great Jew from way back.
What?
And what a great Jew.
You know him, right? You know Gamby. Yeah, you know Tom. I mean, the guy's a scratch golfer.
Okay.
Come on, Gamby.
The way they made up the rosters kind of amused me. Ty Kelly was on that.
Oh, yeah, Ty Kelly was on it. Veteran Ty Kelly. I've seen so much of Ty Kelly. There's a gamer. Plays hard.
Oh, there's a minor league guy that just keeps coming back.
He's in the big leagues. He was in the. Now, I don't know if he's still there, but now a couple of weeks ago I saw his name in a box score where he knocked in a winning run or something, and I was so happy for him because he always would play third, when I was managing, and we'd, BS because those veteran guys I love so much and just keep banging and banging and banging, and they're on a mission. Those are the guys I love, Ralph. I really do.
Yeah. When you were an amateur before signing, who was a coach that affected your game that you can an amateur coach. You know,
Yeah, very simple.
Legion.
No, very simple.
Who is the one guy?
Very simple. Bob Sullivan.
Okay.
Bob Sullivan.
Tell me
Sullivan's
about him.
Furniture. Bob Sullivan's a legend from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has a team, or he had a team. It's not there anymore. But I played for a national championship team in Wichita, the NBC champions, 2 different years. 1 year in 70, and then after I got out of pro ball in 83, we had Rob Ellis on that team. We won it. Ron Pruitt, Rusty Gerhardt, Sean Howitt. But going back even to 60 when they won it, you're looking at Mickey Stanley, Jim Northrup, Willie Horton. I mean, these guys played for Selly. He was a bird dog for Jim Campbell in the Detroit organization. And Bob Sullivan is a legend, and Bob Sullivan gave me a chance to play for him and catapulted me into the scouting arena for people to see me as a player. And if it wasn't for Bob Sullivan, I don't know if I would ever play in the game of professional baseball. That's how much I respect that man.
Well, glad we can give him some kudos.
He's the best. He's the best.
Nice. You're the best. What a terrific interview.
Well, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate that.
All I can hope for is that you'll come back sometime and check in with us. And hey, I'll give you something. Baltimore, you're a scout, free agent scout. It just happened to draft. Who do you like that you guys?
Well, no, Ralph. No. This year I wasn't involved with the draft. See, okay, I've been doing all pro stuff. The last 3 years I was, and I'll give you one name who I was kind of, I pounded the table on in the draft room, and I loved to death, and his name's Austin Hayes. Austin Hayes. He just was promoted from Frederick to AA. He was leading, I don't know if he was leading the league in hitting in the Carolina League. I know he had 16 home runs the first half, and he's a right fielder. He went to University of Jacksonville. And I saw one game, and that's all I needed to see. And I pounded the table, and I told Dan Duquette in the 3rd round, if you're going to take somebody, he's the best player and the best athlete in the country. And we took him, and I just couldn't be happier for that young man. He's only 21, and he's lighting eyes up right now. We love the kid, so exciting.
Nice.
It was and I loved being involved in the draft the last 3 years. But they've changed my coverage, and we were a little light on the pro side. They thought my experience warranted just going over and doing, for trades and acquisitions for the professional side. And when Mr. Duquette speaks, I answer, and I do whatever Dan wants me to do because I go way back to 1985 with that man when he was a Milwaukee Brewer. So highly respect.
Oh, yes. Yes. May I ask you this, Mac? Was there anybody that you missed the boat on that if you had to do it all over again, that you just saw – maybe a player you saw at a bad day, player that you got a bad perspective on, anybody you wish you would have changed your opinion or had a different?
Dang, Ralph. You popped so many dang questions on me. I usually can answer all of them, but you know what?
We can come back to that one.
I got to think about that one.
Well, okay.
Not saying I didn't miss on some guys. Trust me. That's for sure.
And I want to ask you another question. Did you get to interact with Sid Thrift at all?
Oh, God. I'll tell you.
Or his son, Jim, who I knew back in those days and was
I can't believe it. Okay. I mean, I love Sid Thrift. Okay. In Sid Thrift, in 1997, I was managing AA for the Brewers, okay? Fred Stanley, who was my man, Chicken. I love him to death. He hired me with the Brewers, and he's hired me back with the Giants. Well, in the interim, when Fred was over there with the Brewers, he got bumped up to the major leagues as the assistant general manager, and somebody new came in. I'm really not going to go into that, but I ended up getting let go after the 97 season. So I was having a tough time finding a job, and I actually talked to a guy. His name was Paul English. They were just starting that Atlantic League, and I didn't have a job, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had an appointment to meet with him in Boston to manage one of those Atlantic League teams that they were just starting. Well, 2 days before I was going to meet with him, I get a phone call, and it was from Sid Thrift. And Sid goes, Dave, this is Sid Thrift, and I tell you, Mac, I want to fly in tomorrow. I went, oh, okay. He goes, I got a position. He says, you're overqualified for it, but I want to talk to you. So Sid flies me into Baltimore. Well, at that time, the expansion draft was going on, and they were in meetings. And I sat in Sid's office for 3 hours with his secretary, okay, just talking to her. And finally, Sid comes in, and he goes, Dave, Sid, and I never met Sid. This is the first time I ever met the guy. And he sat down. In 5 minutes, I had a deal. Sid was the greatest. He goes, Dave, I'm going to lay it on the table. I want you to manage our Delmarva club. Here's what I can give you. And I go, oh, he gave me a $10,000 raise from the year before, and I got fired. Come on. That doesn't happen. And Sid bumped me to AAA the next year. I managed in Rochester in 1999. And then he got moved up to the general manager spot. And I ended up managing 2 more years with the Orioles, 4 years. But I love Sid Thrift. Sid Thrift was an innovator. Sid Thrift was a genius. Well, over the years, then, as I come back over to Baltimore here, my second tour as a scout, they told me 3 years ago, you're going to go in and see this Kyle Tucker, okay? He was a left-hand hitter, and he's playing here in Corpus right now, okay? I'm watching him. So I go in, and they go, Jim Thrift is our area scout. I go, great. I know Jim from player development. He used to manage and coach, and I knew Jim, but I didn't know him that well. And I got to know Jim when I went in and saw Tucker play. And it's so funny you bring their names up because Tucker has hit 3 home runs since I've been here in these 4 games here in Corpus. Well, the first night he hit 2. And so what did I do? I immediately text Jim Thrift, who's out of baseball right now. He's selling real estate. And I text Jim Thrift. I go, Thrifty, hey, your boy Tucker, man, just went opposite field twice tonight on 2 high fastballs or blah, blah. And he texts me, he goes, Mac, wow, man, I can't believe you're keeping me up to date, and because I hadn't talked to him in about 2 years, 3 years. But I always felt so close to the Thrifts. And Jim Thrift is also a baseball genius, and he taught me so much about scouting that I texted him the information last night. Tucker goes deep again. So you bring his name up. I text Jim Thrift last night and said, Thrifty, he did it again. He goes, dang, Mac, you're the best. Keep me involved because he just loves the game, but he's not in it. So it's just funny you bring his name up. That's so weird.
I'm going to tell you my Thrifty stories, both Thrifties.
Okay.
I'll go back to Modesto, where was it? Medford,
Oregon?
Medford, Oregon. And
okay.
I'm going out. I'm gone as the tops guy to see a bunch of folks. One of them is Rod Beck, and one of them is Jim Thrift to sign to their contracts.
Yeah.
I'm there early. You know how the tops guy hangs around and watches it all. So I'm sitting there, and I introduce myself to a guy who's just sitting there with just hi, I'm Sid Thrift. I'm here to see my son play ball.
Oh, you're talking Irish.
That's exactly. From Virginia, that's how Jim got into the real estate business, because Sid would be in that. And
Sid had a lot of
he learned everything from his dad. He learned scouting. He learned life.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I got to spend the entire day with Sid Thrift, who, if anybody out there doesn't know, you talk about an innovator. He invented the baseball academy.
The Cancer Road Academy. Sure.
Right. He was the general manager of Pittsburgh, and this was before he got the Pittsburgh job. And he told me something that was very interesting that Jim brought up to me in an interview about a week or 2 ago. Jim Thrift. He said, as a scout, look at guys from all different angles. Don't just sit behind the plate.
Right.
Right. He said, go down the right field line, see how he moves his hips, see how he gets the first step to a ball. He was just he talk about dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
That's what Jim was. Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly how Jim is. Every contingency brought up and covered. And So after about an hour watching his son work out at shortstop and whatever, Sid says, "Well, who does Jim remind you of?" And I said, "Tony Kubek." That's
oh,
who.
wow.
That was,
wow.
He was tall and gangly.
Yes, yes.
And either Marty Marion, those kinds of guys. And he just
Come on, Ralph. You're going too far back on that Marty Marion deal for me.
Oh, I know, but not too far back that you and I didn't go back in 1961 and root for that Detroit Tiger team with Charlie Maxwell, Paw.
Hey, Paw. He's from Paw, Michigan. I live 30 miles from there.
Right. So I knew, and in 1961, I'm at the beach in Rockaway, listening to double headers, Detroit against the Yankees.
Wow.
Couldn't find better teams, and you grew up in New York as a National League guy. You're a Yankee hater, but you're not a Yankee hater. You're a Yankee worshiper, and you just don't like the Yankees. But you worship all these players, and you got K-Line, Northrop, these guys, like I say, Maxwell and McAuliffe, all these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Terrific team. Gates Brown. And
he was my coach in Detroit. Gates Brown was the hitting coach. What a man. I love that guy.
What? Oh God. A big, strong pussycat, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say teddy bear.
Teddy bear, yeah. Pussycat doesn't sound right.
Well,
right, but, you know.
Either one. He was great. He got a big heart, Gates, man. I'm telling you. What a good guy. Loved him. Really did.
So when you got back to Detroit, that had to be pretty cool growing up in Michigan.
Oh, heck yeah.
Tell me about how your friends and family would come out and watch you, and how cool that had to be.
Well, they did. I just wish I would have played more. You know.
Yeah.
And you know why?
Well,
you know, Ralph, people go, "Gee, Dave, you were with the Tigers, but you didn't get to play much." Well, I said, you know what? Let's think about this. I go, you're right, I didn't, and you know, but I still have such cherished memories of the Tigers. But I said, I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys. One was Trammell, one was Whitaker, and one was Aurelio Rodriguez, and I was an infielder. So you want to know why I didn't play very much? You know those three guys? Because I'll tell you, it was tough to crack that lineup.
How
those
great
guys
was that double play combination, and how come there is underrated, not really underrated, but I don't think they get the respect that they deserve.
What was so amazing was those guys just knew what the other guy was thinking and doing. There were such tremendous instincts between both of them as I watched them. And I go, man, these guys, I mean, Whitaker knew where to position himself, and Trammell knew where to throw it to get to that position. I mean, they just worked so well together. They just were on the same wavelength, it seems like. You know, they were two people in one man's body. It was like, wow, man, these guys. And they were young. They were like, I mean, I'm 28 then, Ralph. They're like 22, 23, and I'm going, whoa, these guys are the real deal. They're going to be here a long time. And I'll tell you what, Aurelio Rodriguez had one of the greatest arms I've ever seen. That guy. He handcuffed me one night in Kansas City turning a double play. Oh, it was Kansas City or Minnesota, I can't remember. And when I came in to the dugout, Gates Brown goes, "Mac, that's the quickest double play. Your hands, it didn't even look like you touched the ball." And I picked up my shirt, and there was a big red spot right in my belly button. I go, "Gates, it didn't touch my glove. It hit me right here, and I picked it right off my gut, and I threw it." He goes, "Damn." He handcuffed me. Ralph, he handcuffed me, man. It hit me right in the stomach, and I turned it off my stomach. Man, that guy could throw.
Hey, I have a theory, and this has to do with injuries, and I've never asked anybody this. With all the shifting that's going on, right? You get a shortstop playing on the right side of the infield,
right?
And a ball is hit to him, and he gets the ball and throws it to first base. You may say, well, that's cool. He's getting the ball and using an entire different set of muscles because there's in his arm to throw the ball from first base than from second base, than from shortstop. From second base than he would have been from shortstop. Just as an example, do players playing out of position, could that cause injuries and I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well, one of the injuries I could say, I'll tell you,
injuries.
Yeah. I think one of the injuries that you got to watch out for, because I was thinking about it the other night, because it happened in a play. Okay, they were shifting. There was a ball hit to shortstop. The shortstop was way over in the hole, and the second baseman was on the other side of second, where the shortstop usually plays. When the ball was hit to the shortstop in the hole, the second baseman is running to the base to turn a double play in a very, very awkward position because he's trying to get turned to receive the ball from the shortstop, as he's running to the base from a position he has no idea and he's never done before because they're not practicing that. I know that. And so
the ball and the runners coming in
and the runners coming in, and I'm thinking that's a good way to get your leg broke or your knee cut in half on the angle that second baseman's running to the base from the other side, blind because he's blind. He doesn't see the runner. He's trying to get in position of the base. Now he's kind of looking up for the ball. So from that aspect, I think it's very dangerous. Now, as far as the arm strength, second baseman's getting over on that other side sometimes. They need to build their arm up to be able to make that throw. But what worries me is around the base, poor positioning in a position you're not used to, you're going to get killed. And that's one thing I think that people need to be aware of when they're around that base.
Okay. You put my thoughts in my ill-constructed question right in the sweet spot.
How was that?
You hit it right.
Okay.
You put the question in your sweet spot and hit it right out of the ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
So your first home runs, your first at bat, you're running around the bases. What's gone through your head? 27 years old, 7 years in the minors, this, that, and the other thing. What's going through your head?
When I hit that home run, it's like I always say I floated around the bases, and all I kept Ronnie Pops Jackson used to go, Mac, all I heard was you going, woo, woo. I go, man, I was in Rance Mullinax said, you about broke my hand when you came in there. I go, yeah, well, I was a little excited, but I think the thing that I thought of when my dad gave me everything he had. He died 2 years before I ever made the major leagues, and he gave me the opportunity. We grew up in a gas station. His hands were, when he got home, he didn't get the grease off his hands. He had to get that pumice out and that Go Joe and all that. And I said, Dad, let's play some catch. He never once denied me that. And I knew he was tired, and I knew that he had a rough day. But my father gave me everything he had. And the thing that I thought of when I hit that home was my dad, because he was the most special thing that ever happened in my life. And he gave me between fishing and working on cars and playing ball and throwing a football and whatever it was, he was there for me. And he never denied me anything. And he used to say, I'd sit there and I go, Dad, tuning up a car, breaking brakes down or changing tires. He goes, he goes, to hell with that. Get out there and get your glove and go play some ball. Where other dads would say, you're going to work here. You're not going anywhere. No, that wasn't my dad. He gave me the opportunity, and thank you, Dad. Yeah.
Dave, do you have kids?
I have 2 children, Sarah and David. David's a lawyer downtown Chicago. My daughter Sarah is a very successful fitness instructor downtown Chicago. She's 38. My son's 34. I have 3 wonderful grandchildren from my son. My daughter's not married, and my wife of 42 years have been with me through thick and thin, the goods and the bads, Marcia, and she's my everything and my rock. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have time.
She has to get credit for raising those kids under.
Oh, she gets all the credit, Ralph. All the credit.
Because you were gone. I mean, just by nature of the beast, you're gone 6 months
all the time. No, I was gone longer than that because I managed that winter ball 6 times.
Oh, that's wow.
I was gone year. I saw her one time. I saw her 10 days in a year because she was teaching school. She was a special ed teacher. She taught autistic kids, and so she couldn't join me. And she had an autistic program in the summer. So there was one year that I saw her 10 days out of a year, and it was a tough deal.
Oh, Dave.
I mean, not a lot of women would have done that. She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big kudos to her.
Yes.
For that, and all baseball wives. And
that's right. That's the people don't know. All they see is the glamour. It's not all glamour, Ralph. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of relationship issues that come up over the years that need to be ironed out, and some work it out, and unfortunately some don't. That's too bad.
What did you pass on to your kids from your dad? And I'm not talking baseball stuff. I'm talking life. What's the thing that you passed on?
When you get knocked down, get back up. Nobody's going to give you anything. You got to earn it, and that's what my father always taught me.
Okay.
The other thing, I hate to say this, is my dad always said, if there's a confrontation and it's not your fault, you throw the first punch. Okay. I did a couple times.
I'll bet you did. You're a battler.
That's right.
Any battles in life that you wish you didn't fight?
Well, the worst battle of my life, which wasn't me, it was my daughter. She has Crohn's disease, and that was the worst battle of my wife and my daughter and me, my in our life, to overcome a disease that is very, very tough to deal with. And she has got off the canvas, and she's the toughest person I know. Been through hell, Ralph, and she's got up off the canvas, and she's a fighter. And that was the toughest battle that we've ever fought was for my daughter. And
nice.
So it's
nice.
Yeah.
I'm
she's
sorry
special.
she went through this, but nice that she had that quality of never give up and keep
she's
fighting
something.
instilled in her.
Yeah. It's my Sarah.
What's next for you?
Oh, gee, Ralph. Well, Monday I'm going home after a 30-day trip, so that's nice. I'm going to throw out a fishing line.
Okay.
That's in the immediate future.
Hey,
you know what?
R&R.
I love the game. I want to keep working. I'm 66 years old. I don't have any plans to retire. I always had the dreams of getting up to the major leagues as a coach or as an instructor or a manager. I don't know if that'll ever happen for me. I'll never quit trying. I'll always continue to do my work and give baseball everything I've got. So, I'm not ready to retire by any means. I feel good. I feel energetic. I feel, that, I look forward, not behind me. So just got to keep trudging, Ralph. That's it.
Beautiful, Dave. Please come back time and time again.
I appreciate it. Had fun. That was great.
I think you're special, and I'm glad I got to tell that story about Sheffield on the air, and that's cathartic for me because there weren't many like him.
Well, that snuck up on me because you never gave me any inkling about that, and once you brought it up and once you start talking, now I do remember the whole incident because at first I'm thinking, and then once you hit it on the head. I go, man, I remember that.
I remember just you and I turning and looking at each other, and you shook your head in a little way, like, oh God, that hurt because
well,
he was that was part of your team and all that, and
we won 93 games that year, Ralph. 93 games that year in the Cal League, got beat in the playoffs by Reno. They had Robbie Alomar, and Pat Kelly was the manager.
Well,
yeah.
I'm trying to think. Your pitching coach,
Rob Dirksen.
Rob Dirksen. He was the pitching coach. Tim Ireland was in the organization at the time. Timmy Ireland. And Mark Littell. Mark Littell.
Oh, yeah.
I have a podcast network here, and Mark Littell does a weekly podcast on my network.
He's a beauty.
He's a beauty.
He's a beauty. Nutcracker. What's he got? Nut Buddy.
Yes. His invention.
His Nut Buddy.
And he wrote a book with stories that are very, very funny and very interesting. And He's very conversational, and I have him teamed up with a fellow by the name of another Mark with the C, Mark Weiss, and they talk, and he brings in players and coaches and what have you. He is organizing something. You might be interested in what he's doing. He's organizing a Cuban trip, bringing coaches down. We'll talk on Facebook. He might invite you to that because he's doing it and he's excited about it. And
cool.
I'm going to give him your number, and maybe you guys can get together. I gave him Gary's number, Gary Davenport.
Oh, cool! I'd love to be involved with that. That'd be great.
Yeah. So let's see how if we can do that, and. We'll talk on Facebook, and I'm just flying high. This was more fun for me going back all those years, and I learned so much from you today. This is great. Please come back.
Cool, Ralph. I enjoyed it, man.
All right, David.
Okay. Thank you so much for hooking up, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I want everybody out there to keep on keeping on. That's the only thing.
You're going to throw some music into that podcast for me. I gave you the name.
I'll throw some of the greatest music you ever heard. I might even do some singing for you.
Okay, cool. All right.
Can you imagine how you'd have to train your ear to resist that?
I'll scout it. Okay.
You'll scout it out. Thank you, David.
Okay. Thank you, Ralph.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Be well, everybody out there. Same time, same bat channel next week. Adios.